Hello everyone, here is CRH Films. Sit back and let's get started. Today I'm going to tell you about a film from 2020 called Persian Lessons. The Germans catch a group of Jews, put them in a truck and take them somewhere. We are introduced to the main character, Gilles Crimier, who is also caught by the Germans. On the way, one of the men offers an exchange. He will give a book, and in return he will receive only half a sandwich. Krimier agrees to the exchange. The book was in Farsi. On the way he learns a few words in that language that later helped him a lot. Suddenly the truck stops, the Germans take the detainees out and shoot them. Krimier falls to the ground and shouts that he is not a Jew, but a Persian, and shows the very book. As one of the officers is looking for the Persian, the soldiers take him with them to the concentration camp. At the same time, in the camp, Officer Klaus Koch reprimands his subordinate for illegible handwriting. Later, Krimier is brought to him, but Koch hesitates. He asks a few questions about Iran and then asks to read something from his book, but Krimier replies that he can neither read nor write in Farsi, but can only speak, and Koch demands that Krimier say something in Farsi. The protagonist says the first words that come to his mind and then translates them, after which Koch is left in no doubt. Koch informs him that in Krimier he will work in the kitchen and afterwards will teach him Farsi language, but warns that if he cheats he will be very much regretted. Meanwhile, a new batch of prisoners arrives at the camp. The next day he arrives in the kitchen, is briefed, and starts to work. During the working day, Krimier tries to think of which words are responsible for what. He comes up with words for the kitchen tools and the food they cooked. After work, he goes to Koch, who tells him about his plans. He wants to learn 4 words a day, which later in 24 weeks, 96 in a month, and 1152 in a year, and since he thinks the war will go on for at least 2 years, he will know over 2,000 words. Koch tells me that after the war, he wants to go to Tehran and open a German restaurant there. After a brief conversation, Koch begins to learn words related to food, and Krimier names everything he has managed to think of during the day. When he returns to the barracks he keeps repeating the words he said to Koch, a mistake that could take his life. The next morning, a soldier, Max Baer, comes into Klaus' office and says that Krimier is not Persian and that he is deceiving him, but Koch does not want to listen to him and drives the soldier away. Later, he removes Struba from her job as secretary, and Krimier takes her place. This makes her very angry, but because she has no right to object, she takes all her anger out on the cook. Going to Koch, Krimier learns that he needs to translate 40 words. He sees only 39 and Koch tells him to add the word truth. Krimier is shocked because he had a hard time remembering 10 words, but there are 40. During lunch, 2 soldiers come up with a plan to get rid of the Persian. One of the soldiers takes Krimier outside the camp, hoping to pass it off as an escape. Without implying that it is a setup, Krimier escapes into the woods, where he bumps into a man. Krimier tells him that he needs to come up with 40 words in a language he does not know. It is not difficult to come up with, but to fill. He also realizes that there will be more and more words every day. The man says that he had better go back, so he does. Back, Klaus shows Krimier his new robot. He will have to record all the prisoners arriving at the camp. Filling out the logbook, he has an idea, combining part of his first and last name, and succeeds in making up words in Farsi. Later, Klaus returns and likes his handwriting as well as the finished word list. Koch decides to check on Krimier and takes the finished word list and begins checking it out. Krimier succeeds in this task, as all the words are in the journal. The next morning, while handing out food to the prisoners, he also asks their first and last names to come up with more words in Farsi. Klaus is summoned by the camp commandant, who asks how Klaus is doing in learning Persian. Klaus replies that he only wants to move in with his brother, but the commandant says there is nothing in Koch's file about his brother, and then asks Klaus to prepare a banquet for 30 people. In the evening, Klaus and Krimier prepare food for the banquet, and to keep time, continues to learn new words. The next day, during the picnic, Klaus asks what a tree is in Farsi, and Krimier answers Raj, forgetting that he used to say it was bread. Klaus is very angry. He starts beating up Krimier. After the beating, Klaus tries to come to his senses and later tells the soldiers that he no longer needs the Persian. Krimier is sent to the quarry. There he loses all his strength. He begins muttering, in his own made-up language, something incomprehensible. Klaus is brought to him and he hears that Krimier is calling for his mother and wants to go home. Klaus orders him to take the Persian to the infirmary. Already in the hospital, Krimier tells the doctor that he made up his tongue, but the doctor does not take it seriously, as he thinks Krimier is delirious. When Krimier gets better, he is taken to Klaus. He decides to give him an exam, but first he apologizes, gives Krimier new clothes, and they proceed to the lesson. The next day, during dinner, a woman overhears a conversation between two soldiers and decides to tell Klaus about what she has heard, but what she has heard only makes him laugh. Klaus goes to the commandant with a request to keep the Persian in the camp, as all the prisoners are going to be taken away tomorrow. The commandant informs him that Klaus has received a complaint that he has suspended his secretary because of his relationship with the Persian. Klaus, realizing who might have spread this rumor, tells the commandant that some people say he has a little one. In the evening, Klaus asks Krimier to speak to him in Farsi, after which he has no more doubts about Krimier and tells him that he will be moved to the farm tomorrow and the others will be moved elsewhere. The next day he is taken to the farm. On arrival, he collapses on a haystack without strength and eats raw potatoes. Also that morning, the commandant comes to the kitchen and sends whoever spread these rumors to the Eastern Front. When Krimier returns to the camp, the soldier says he will expose him sooner or later. Walking through the places where life was raging yesterday, he finds a doll with an Aviva patch on it. Arriving at his barracks, he contemplates everything that is going on and constantly looks at the Aviva patch. Winter arrives and the camp arrives with new prisoners. Krimier asks each prisoner his name and comes up with new words. The next day, Klaus invites him to his office and asks him to call him by his name and gives him a portion of good food. Krimier asks him to take it with him to the barracks. Klaus agrees and gives him 2 more cans of stew. This is the food he feeds the sick guy in the barracks. The camp receives new prisoners, among whom is a Persian. The soldier who found the Persian is very happy, as he has the opportunity to expose the Krimier. All of this is noticed by the guy whom the Krimier fed last night. The soldier immediately runs to Krimier, takes the barracks to show the Persian, but finds him murdered. The soldier is furious. He begins to beat Krimier severely. The man comes out and confesses that it was he who killed the Persian and the soldier shoots him. The next day Klaus returns to the camp in the evening. He was drunk and he and Krimier have a friendly conversation, telling him that he needs to go to the farm again, as the prisoners will be taken out tomorrow. Klaus says that Krimier has nothing to fear as long as he works for him and bets the size of 20 cans of stew that nothing will happen to Krimier. When he arrives at the barracks, he realizes what will happen tomorrow, gives his coat to one of the prisoners, and stands all night looking out the window. The next day, he leaves the camp with everyone else. This information reaches Klaus. He at first does not believe it, but then decides to check anyway. He manages to catch up with the prisoners and among them he finds Krimier. One of the soldiers tries to protest Klaus, but the latter points a pistol at him and orders him to let go. The soldier reluctantly lets them go. At night, the Allied army approaches the camp and the officers decide to leave the compound. In the morning, Klaus escapes to the barracks, picks up Krimier, and takes him outside the camp grounds. All this, a soldier who wants to uncover the secret of Krimier sees, tries to catch up with them, but without success, then goes to the commandant's office to report, but the commandant does not want to hear anything, as he is busy destroying the camp's archive. Walking through the woods, Klaus tells Krimier that a plane is waiting for him a few kilometers away, which will take him to Tehran, and Krimier is now free. Klaus, upon arriving in Tehran, begins to speak in Farsi, but no one understands him. He realizes that all this time Krimier has been deceiving him. Krimier manages to get to the Allied camp and reports that he can give the 2,840 names of those who have been in the camp, thanks to the fictional Farsi language. Barely holding back tears, he gives the names of the people. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Give us your likes, subscribe to the channel and write your comments on what movie you want to see next. CRH Films is with you as always. Have a good day or night and see you soon.